Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Nexus podcast. I'm your co-host M2 Dave, and I'm here with my co-host Franco, aka King Burrito, aka King Junior. Say hi, Ben.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And I just wanted to make a quick note. The last podcast and every podcast before, I, long story short, was having, I wasn't muted like I thought I was, cause I was muting on Discord, but I figured out that problem, so like you shouldn't hear any background noise on my end. So hopefully that's just one little quality of life thing about the podcast that hopefully helps in the future episodes. So sorry for the past episodes if there was any background noise.
Yeah, we have a little hotfix action going on, a little patchy. so we're still working on the podcast. Obviously, the quality of it as well as trying to get more attention and trying to get more views, trying to get more informative, trying to be more entertaining. And speaking of all of that, I'm not gonna do a huge introduction because as soon as you hear the following man's voice, you will immediately know who it is. All I'm gonna say is the voice of the NRS community, the voice of Mortal Kombat, the voice of Injustice. Uh, I'm not gonna say who it is. I'm just let the individual talk for a little bit. I welcome this individual to the podcast. I just want to, to be a little bit shocker because you will immediately know who it is as soon as you hear the voice. So please introduce yourself, sir.
What's going on, everyone? Excited to be here on the podcast with two gentlemen I've known for a long time in this NRS community, this competitive community that has been such a home for all of us here for quite some time. And yeah, I've been kind of a voice out there in the space in a lot of the games throughout a lot of times. And excited to be here on the podcast with you guys to talk some Mortal Kombat, to talk something. I'm just excited. What's going on?
So of course, unless you've been living under the rock, you know that it's MrAqua. I'm super excited. He's been the commentator for the NRS community for a very long time. Of course, especially recently. If you watch any major Mortal Kombat One tournament, offline or online, in any country, then he's been promoting the game, promoting the community, promoting the players. So King Junior and I are very very excited to have you on, man. You're definitely not just the voice. You're very knowledgeable about the game. You're very knowledgeable about the players. So we're excited. We're honored to have you, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me. Truly an honor as well, because like I said, I know you guys go way back. I mean, when I first started out, M2 Dave was on the leaderboard. I remember when you went to your first offline was one of the first offlines I ever, one of the first tournaments I ever watched, tuned into was I think your first offline back in MK9. So a lot of history, man. We've been through a lot.
Yeah, it's always good to have a veteran because a lot of these young players, right? They're new to the community. They're new to the game, but
Yeah,
uh,
and that's one of the tricky things throughout this entire thing for all of us. I feel like is that each era comes in with an entirely new wave of players that almost feels like an entirely new community at times, especially in these later games.
absolutely. I want to ask you a question. I think most of our viewers, they're mostly interested in the present. We can go back in the past as well. So
Hmm.
obviously, I think everybody would agree for the most part that Mortal Kombat One is in a good state right now in terms of the meta, it's the balance, right? But it wasn't always so. The first year, the game was criticized a lot, in my opinion, rightfully so. What made you confident that the game was going to improve, that the community was going to come around, that NRS was going to deliver the changes that we needed? What made you confident? What made you support the scene, the game, etc., etc.?
Man, I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely a challenge out of the gate. You know, when we just talk about it like it is, when you put out an incomplete product, it's hard to be super positive about it in certain lights. But for someone like me, I always look at it, through a fisheye lens, in that I'm more of a competitive guy than I am a Mortal Kombat guy at the end of the day, which kind of separates me from a lot of people. And so, that gave me a little bit of an edge in that I still only focused on the competitive a lot early on, and even that the early metas I wasn't really liking how it was playing out with how cameos were used, etc. But after the first few patches was when I really started to to get a feel for everyone, exploring more with their characters versus being locked into just kind of one or two ways to play the game. I started to see so many other ways to play the game open up as the patches came.
But you would agree that the game is in a very good state right now, would you? Aside from, yeah, I know, there was some
Right
stuff with
now,
even, yeah, right now.
yeah, right now competitively, I think it's in a great state, and there's so many teams that can win. We just again see a lot of people, you know, go with what is perceivably the best, and they're going to do that regardless of what's at the top. And right
Yeah,
now,
of course.
so you're looking at Tremor and Movado with the heaviest usages because they give the most utility.
No, exactly. There was some stuff with, when T1000 was initially released. I'm pretty sure most people would agree was kind of broken, right? Especially
Oh,
with
the
the
great
spike.
scare. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, and then they nerfed him quite a decent amount. He still seems good. Maybe Tremor is the way to go right now instead of Movado. I don't, I really don't use him, so I'm not really sure. But from what I've seen, it seems like he's still good. I don't know how good he is as far as is he S tier? Is he slightly below? I don't know. But what do you think? I mean, you watch the game, you commentate, you probably know more than I do. What do you think?
It's an interesting talking point because I see it go back and forth, and I was right there when the character was launched. Of like, oh man, he came out a little hotter out of the oven than a couple other characters. It felt like in an but even I tune in and host tournaments on a weekly basis, and I only see him even right now. We see a lot of T1000, but we see a lot of T1000 as like the counter pick mid match, not necessarily the out pick, or the outright pick from a lot of people in these like top 8 tournaments. And he there hasn't been like the domination that we've seen from a couple of others. Like the arguments there for Cyrax Bow, but is that also Sonic? Is that the character? We are seeing a huge uptick in Cyrax players once you're in. The blender, you're in the blender with that character, and same can be said for T1000 right now. But I do feel like outside of when you're in that normal range of T1000, that 4343, when you're outside of spike range, that character is really not the strongest. I feel like that exists in the game. So I think he's in a little bit of a tuned down spot than where he was, but he's definitely viable. But we haven't seen any exploration outside of Movado Tremor, at least to me. Not one single one have I seen without a Movado or a Tremor.
Yeah, which is I think pretty standard for this game. I think most characters, like they're used with one or two cameos and nothing past that,
Yep.
which is fine. That's the game. It's kind of like the variation system, right? Like usually have one great variation. Maybe you would use one other in certain matchups, and maybe the third one is kind of like why is it even in the game, right? And I think that's the way a lot of these cameos
and
function.
and you
I'm
know
not
what, they have to exist, right? Those someone Frosts, those someone Dariuses that are just like, why would you pick that in a tournament?
correct, correct. Before we get into the specifics, and I'll let King Jun jump in. So, can you talk more in detail, like what made you think, "Oh my God, the game is in this state. People are, essentially, I don't want to say hating, but they are like being highly critical, and rightfully so." And I guess maybe I could compare it to right now. I don't know if you follow Tekken closely, but it received this patch not too long ago, and everybody's like,
Yes.
what is this? We hate this game. So, what made you for Mortal Kombat One? Of course, what made you continue? What made you have the faith to keep, saying, well, guys, things will get better. I'm critical as well. Can you talk a bit more detail? Because I think this is really important, kind of, just to show the our
Yeah.
audience because there was some growth right in the game, not just maybe with the players, but obviously with the with the game itself. And what made you continue? What made you have the confidence in NRS and in the community that things would get better?
Well, man, it like I said, beginning to answer one earlier, it was rough from the beginning, and still is rough to this day. In that I'm still sitting here salty as a son of a bitch that there's no rooms in MK1 that I've been sitting here waiting for since day one, and so there's still things that can definitely be said about it overall, and not to sidetrack too much, but I said to myself, and I didn't really say this much out loud, but I said to myself when Street Fighter 6 launched and I got into their battle hub, I said, man, if MK doesn't have anything like this, we are screwed from an online standpoint. And we didn't even have rooms and still don't have rooms. And so, there's little things that can be just be nailed into the ground still that can be held against the game, and rightfully so. But I always go back to just the core gameplay of MK1 that since day one, I always enjoyed because it had a little bit of it had a little bit of mechanics that I really enjoyed from previous titles. Armor came back, just armor being back in the game alone made me want to play it way more than MK11, for instance. And so for someone like me, I look for something to actually enjoy, and that's what I hold on to initially, and then it's just praying NRS does something beyond that point. And I wish the patches would be bigger as well that have come, but they may feel otherwise about the state of the game, and rightfully so, because they also look at balance a little bit differently. The competitive scene only comprises. I did a little bit of math on MK1. The competitive scene, maybe at its max, comprises 0.04% of game sales. And so when they take balance into consideration, they also take into account casual usages and casual play, the most used characters outside of competitive as well, which may not be the strongest competitively.
For sure, I want to touch on this topic later on with you because I have people don't know, but I still sometimes talk to like people like Pick Up the Hut, Rio, Tom Brady. Those are some of my
Hmm.
closer friends in the FGC, and we talk about this topic all the time. And sometimes we disagree, sometimes we agree. And I definitely want to get your take on it because I think you know what you're talking about. Um, but let me ask you, and I promise I'll shut up and let King Jr. jump in. What was your initial reaction when we found out that Mortal Kombat 1 will no longer be supported, at least not as far as DLC content is concerned?
Oh, pissed. Definitely a little bit pissed off in that we were told otherwise, right? Expecting longer support, more support than previous titles, and at the end of the day, it's about the same. So yeah, a little bit ticked off about that one personally.
Yeah, King Jr., go ahead and jump in. I don't want to ask all the questions because I'm so curious what he has to say. So please go ahead and jump in, and we'll take the conversation from here on.
Yeah, just to add on to it,
Of course.
we've already put like $140 into the game. Come on, it adds up.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just say quickly, I like the game. I know some people don't because of the cameo system. Because I talked to Tom Brady, doesn't like the cameo system, which is fine. Like
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
not.
absolutely rightfully so. Every time Mortal Kombat changes something drastic, which they've outright said that they're right. Ed did an interview was like 10 years ago, and he said that's what we do every game. We like to drastically do something different, and that's you know like it or not, it's what they do, but it can be problematic because you just can't resonate with it if they do something that you don't like this.
Yeah, I think every time you do something different, I think as Tekken, as the Namco development team has recently found out, right, with the heat system, or even
Yes.
to a lesser extent, the Capcom development system, with the drive system, whatever you want to call it, like people will be pissed off. They will not be happy, So maybe Namco more so recently, right? Because they have tried to make the game more offensive when Tekken, at least traditionally speaking, has always been a defensive game, more or less.
Which
And
is
of
which has been the
course,
story with a lot of the games, right? Because Street Fighter 6 kind of went the same route, and now in
correct.
Guilty Gear, it's a lot of offense out there in the world.
Yes, there certainly is, and that's one of my criticism of the game, of Mortal Kombat 1 specifically. I recognize that Sector is a very strong character. Um, Wide Tech, he recently won that major right in Brazil. Definitely zoning. There's no question about it. It kind of looked like Injustice 2, right? The way he played.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So I like that.
but such a rarity because that's and I think you've even talked about a lot on Test Your Might where that lack of archetype kind of isn't there consistently in Mortal Kombat 1. You've got that kind of one outlier right now, maybe one or two others that also have to be paired with Motaro, in my opinion.
Yes.
That actually, maybe take the title of a premier zoner, but it's really hard to see.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Man, I want to ask you like 100 more questions, but I want to be fair to
Archetypes, archetypes alone, bring them more grapplers, more zoners, more defined characters that aren't doing. Everyone's doing everything now, which is a problem.
Yeah, but I don't think it's people want to
It is a
say
huge
it's
problem, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. But people are unfair. They want to put everything in Mortal Kombat, but a lot of these other, like if you study these other games like Tekken, like Street Fighter, their respective communities have the same criticism about their games like we do. So I don't think it's fair to
All of the
say.
comment sections on Twitter are now the same in the FGC. They're all the same. I feel like.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna roast some of those people, including some of my friends. But again, I want to give I want to
No,
give King
I have.
Junior.
I've been sitting back for the last few years, just slowly watching every other community turn into the NRS community.
Yes, 100%.
It's the last couple of years I've really, especially last year, I think has really shown its colors. Because right now, any game that puts out an update on Twitter, just look at the responses. It's all where's my character, mother?
I
And
don't
it's like whoa,
understand
whoa.
why the FGC, especially. I don't think Twitter has been good, man. Not just for
Yeah, I'm.
the FGC, to some other topics, but obviously that's beyond the scope of this podcast. I feel like I don't understand why we're acting like we're playing the worst games of all time, and for the most part, these games are like the most polished of all time, the most
Yeah,
patched of all
exactly.
time.
Some of us are sitting here just again looking at the core gameplay and the competitive gameplay, and you go, man, this is so much more solid and fundamental, and less janky than everything that we were looking at back in 2012, 2013, 2014, where it was just craziness.
Absolutely. But King Junior, go ahead and jump in and ask questions. Say your piece, please.
So I'm gonna try to address like what do we cover, like two or three topics between you two. So like as far as the state of in meta of the balance of MK1, I think it's in a good spot too. Like I think T1000 got like nerfed harder than I expected, but he's still good. Don't listen to those T1000 down players. I'm talking to you, PL, you little down player. But we were talking at Combo Breaker, and he's like, dude, the characters, whatever, silly Carl things. But
Okay, what about the game plan change with the character? That's what I really need the answer to from T1000
he
players.
says like him and some other people say like the command grab slower, blah blah. You can have an easier chance of reacting to it. But like my thing is he still has a 7 hitting string that can tick off any 6 hits. Like you can't react to that command grab if it's done. I think it's 12 frames now at the
Yep.
fastest instead of 8.
And with Tremor, you have to worry about like two other mix-ups that are going to be safe versus if it's paired with Movado,
Yeah,
where you're also looking out for the low, where they finally take the risk. But man,
I
it all
think
depends on what's backing them.
I think the low spike nerf was the hardest, to be honest. Like they should they did like removed one distance so it can't go as far or something.
Yep.
Like
Still a mix-up though.
yeah, it's still good. It still has that Lee May-esque poke punish property, so
It
like
reminds
that's
me of
really
the
strong.
exact. It reminds me of the exact patch that hit Homelander, where he got nerfed, and I put up air quotes when I said that, and the character was just fine afterwards. Really reminiscent. Homelander maybe
Agreed.
not as changed because again T1000 feels a little more reliant on cameo, whereas Homelander is kind of a
I
great
would
character.
yeah, I would
Absolutely right.
say he's pretty cameo reliant too. Like if he didn't have Farah, like then he would just be stuck with
Yeah,
overheads and
the
like
grab
no
would be.
command grab. Yeah,
Mhm.
like his that command grab just commands so much respect. Like I feel like he could be full screen and like not even a millisecond later he just teleports and grabs you in front of you. Like I hate that character. He just
That's
you
one of the
cannot breathe against him.
that's one of the scariest things in the competitive scene right now is that raw grab check like anywhere, like you just block anything even 3/4 screen and he can just check you with that demonic dash grab.
Yeah, I know. It just commands so much respect. It's so messed up. Like, but jokes aside, to the T1000 down players and Carl, I still love you. Don't worry, we're still cool. But um, yeah, so I think the game's very balanced competitively. I think other than Quan Chi being a shitter, every character is viable. Like I would say Quan Chi is like the only unviable character, and I'm not even trying to be biased because he's like my secondary fun character, but like he genuinely has like a few 3-7 matchups in my opinion, like Smoke, Tanya, uh, maybe even not Johnny Cage, but some other character. Some characters just he has a lot of 4-6s and 3-7s, and he's coincidentally one of the premier zoners via DLC, and yeah, he just has a lot of issues. But outside him, I would say the game's very balanced. Like, and um, Brazil made MrAqua have this like uprising, like this instead of being potentially mid tier, it could be a little higher than mid tier now. Like that's the character that sent Sonic to losers. Brazil, I think it was, and
And then even just a couple of days ago, Or sorry, yesterday. I take it back. Was the Brazil offline? Yeah, it was an offline regional final to see who goes to final combat, and almost winning it was Conqueror with Kenshi Frost. And if you look at every tier list right now, Kenshi Frost should on paper be pretty buns. A lot of people aren't liking that, but that man has been playing since day one. Has had everything down, and is just a defensive monster. Is Conqueror. Made it work against everyone that was there in top eight in Brazil Gamescom. He was taking it to him there with the Kenshi, and a lot of those guys are character specialists and loyalists still down there in that region, and they grind, man. They grind, and they are a solid unit of a community
Yeah,
for sure.
I didn't listen to the Kenshi players either when they said that Kenshi was dead after the
Yeah,
like the
same.
overhaul he got with the armor from the
I didn't listen
balance
to
like
MrAqua players
for
on the
the
first nerf either. I didn't buy it, not one
yeah,
bit.
yeah, because like Kenshi's win condition still exists. You just instead of playing like 3 hours worth of lottery, it's now just like
Yep.
maybe
Okay.
like
Okay.
three or four
So you get
guesses.
20 minutes, and you got to spend a bar to restart it. God forbid.
Yeah, like he can still mix you. Just he has less opportunities. Like instead of guessing 20 times, it's like more like three or
Wow.
four times.
What do you
Like
mean I only get 8 mixes that are
like
safe and gapless?
yeah, you got a lot of mix opportunity, man. Let's not get greedy. Like he definitely did get hit, but not like he's not unviable. Like I know some people
Yeah,
that think he's bottom one. Bacon
and
Lord.
they did some interesting juicing to some characters too, like Rain, Reptile. Now Lee May are in really interesting spots. I just saw Lee May win a tournament for like the first time yesterday. I'm like, what's going on? Wait a minute. She might be back.
Yeah,
You if you give her safe mix, you give any character safe mix, and here we go.
and then I don't know if you saw the stream match against Genner, and I'm sorry, Dave, if I keep cutting you off. I see you unmuting and muting. I'm sorry. If you saw Genner's Lime almost come back in the set against Sonic's Cyrax
He was the one that I
Bow.
saw win a tournament too. Yeah, be on the
Yeah,
lookout for his Lee May.
Genner was putting in that work with Lime. It's just he had like one unfortunate drop which he lost a round from, and then but
Hmm.
yeah, he got a game off Sonic with Lime, and I'm just like, dude, that's awesome. She was actually one of the characters I recently wanted to pick up. I just haven't invested a lot in her yet because I've been going to these tournaments lately. And CEO I'll be at next, but after
Let's go.
CEO I got like a long break from tournaments and I'll just play a bunch of side characters for fun. Like I picked up Noob recently too. I'm enjoying him a lot. But yeah, this overall this game's balanced and there's like at least one fun team with every character. Like I like Noob Janet. Garrus is very fun with like the whole cameo roster for the most part. Shang I like with Scorpion, Quan Chi, Jax. Like I can go on. Uh, I'll get into like my criticisms of the game in a little bit. I know they talk about like the online rooms lacking, and I hope we get that in a hot fix, especially for you tournament organizers like yourself, which we are grateful for, by the way.
Man,
And I hope they touch
TOs,
up the online
content
too.
creators, and just online in general, like that's where everyone used to kind of meet up. Just you can create a room and sync up, play the game.
Yeah,
It encouraged it.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we thank you for doing what you do, and I think, and I don't mean this in any like malicious. I think you get the credit that you deserve for sure. But also, we have to give a shout out to like the Leaf Live TVs of the
Oh yeah,
world.
all of them.
Yeah, they do such an amazing job, and I want people to realize, people might not necessarily be commenting, commenting, on your hard work, but people do watch, people do appreciate you, and even if they're not part of the NRS community, like my cousin, he's retired, he doesn't play anymore, but even even he's like he watches some matches, so just in case all the people who put in the hard work, just in case just so like even if people may not be commenting on YouTube or on Twitter, people do watch, people do appreciate what you do uh right now, and please continue your work for the future as well for other games. So all those uh guys who who put in quality quality content in terms of whatever it might be. Obviously, in this tournaments, but people do watch and people do appreciate what you
Yeah, there's a
do.
ton of other content out there. I mean, shoot, not to sidetrack too much, but other content can also be like what Waz was doing for a while, where he was just doing that more casual style, challengey, combo-y stuff that just so many people tuned in for. They're in MK11 going in MK1, and it's people like that, and it's garnering those big audiences that definitely allow for growth.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was listening to something Foxy, who's still competing, was saying. He made, I think, a criticism of Mortal Kombat 1, 30-minute rant or something. But he literally mentioned something that generally caught my attention. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting per se, but he was saying something, the thing that's keeping Mortal Kombat 1 alive is the community, right? Because, in the past, it's always the community, especially with MK and Tom Brady. I think he's being way too harsh, but I think the MK community is in a very good place for the most part, right? Not saying I agree with everything people are saying, especially when it comes to balanced directions, but but that's another topic. I
Yep.
think people like you and the Leaf Live TV and I know I'm forgetting others here. I'm just
Yeah,
um,
the rips, the destroyers, the all of
yes,
them.
thank you. The Rips, yeah, Destroyer, right?
Demon Lobby, Shirai Ryu
Yep, Demon Lobby, Shira
Sundays.
Ryu.
Yeah, Destroyer, even with his like Mortal Kombat X tournaments,
Yeah,
right?
still
Like,
doing
who
X.
thought we'd see that at this time? So all those guys who are putting in major work and supporting the scene. It's not even about whether you like the games or not. If you like them, watch them. If you don't, then don't. That's the way I
Yeah,
see it at this point in my.
that's always been my mentality too, but it's that does affect a lot of people because that's where we have lost so many people throughout the years. Every time something changes and they don't like it, we definitely lose that audience member, and it hurts, but it also helps them out at the end of the day too, because if they're not enjoying it, one of the things I see the most in this community are people forcing themselves to play something that you can tell by how they play it that they don't even enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that I have kind of learned my lesson, especially for example, I like the season 2 patch for Tekken. I know it's just super controversial, and a
Whoa,
lot of people are like,
whoa.
what's wrong with you, Dave? Like you're an old school player, you're a
Hey,
legacy player.
I'm not
Why
gonna
would
lie.
you like?
Someone told me what the patch was and like how the game played afterwards, and I'm like, so we're playing MKX. I actually kind of want to try it. And then I was like, wait.
Yeah, it's funny to me because certain people like Tom Brady always used to talk about high power levels, and now the kind of high power levels became a little bit unpopular. I don't know. It doesn't seem like
Yeah,
he's ranting too much about it. And
I,
again, he's
I
my friend.
think like the type of high power level, like there's like BS power levels that like are like kind of like maybe take less thought to enforce, but or less execution. But like I don't know how it is in Tekken really because I don't play it enough. But like um, I think high power levels should take like cabal level execution. Like if you want like some high like some bull crap to like enforce, like it should have like an execution barrier. I think that's like maybe the difference Tom's looking for. But like some characters might be too easy to enforce like heavy power level stuff. Like Homelander's command grab, let's be real, that move definitely helps you open people up a lot as opposed to like Cabal dash cancel pressure. But like as long as it takes some type of uh, like execution of some kind, like I think it's fine and it should exist.
Well, I mean, you will always have. Again, this is one discussion that I have with Rio privately. By the way, guys, we'll still try and have him on. We're doing our best, but um, you will always have some type of easy top tiers. Right now in Mortal Kombat, it's probably, and MrAqua, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably Havoc, Mavado, right? In Tekken, it's probably Lars, maybe Fang. Street Fighter is probably Mai, maybe Rashid a little bit. So in every game this happens, right? Because these games are, we're not saying these games are perfect. We're just saying that you know it's natural to have something that's easy to use and something that's very very effective.
yeah,
And if you're a competitive player, like yeah, that's what you want, right? Because you don't want to put in all the work. You don't want to put in hours and hours, you know, um, playing time. You're trying to limit your playing time, and you're trying to maximize your efficiency, right? So
that's right. Everyone's all about
um,
optimizing these days.
exactly. So again, right now it's probably Havoc, Mavado, and maybe to a lesser extent T1000 and Tremor. I don't know. That remains to be seen. But again, every game has this. I don't think it's all that surprising.
Yeah, there could really be an argument just for Movado since he kind of self OSs and only comes out on hit. One of the biggest, you know, one of the biggest hand holding things that exist in Mortal Kombat 1, if we want to talk about it.
No,
Definitely.
absolutely, yes. I know. people have been critical. Look, man, I don't think any. You can argue the Cyrax stuff is not very fun to watch, not very fun to play against. I would agree. I don't think it's broken though. But again, I have a very different perspective than a lot of these younger players. I feel like a lot of them think everything is broken. I
Yeah,
really don't. I
because
mean, you
we've
can comment on
because
that.
we've
You've been
we've
on
seen
it
it
for a
fought
long time.
way worse.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
keep in
that's
mind.
something we talked about. Like some people I talked with at Combo Breaker, like we were talking about that too. Like we've dealt with way worse. Like I feel like I trap somebody in bone cage once, or make them block some purple skulls for like a second. And they're like, "Oh my god, I can't get in. My life's over. This game sucks." Like, like it's really nothing though. Just getting bone caged once or twice, and then purple skulled, and then the second they jump out the
Yeah,
cage because that's their
God
natural
forbid they have to
reaction, they get
hold. God
anti-aired.
forbid they have to hold a projectile more than once.
Yeah, like they try to jump out the bone cage because like the obvious panic move to do, and then they just get stand three anti-aired and like, dude, this is broken. I can't get out. Like, but and then obviously they don't really listen to the explanation of how to actually play the matchup, and it's funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that nothing in this game is like the the extent to which we used to do a lot of this other stuff. And but
Now,
keep in
having
mind
said
that
that, the one setup that Sonic was going for at Combo Breaker, even watching it live, watching the players try to figure out how to get out of it, and then me sitting there going, okay, how do you get out of it? There's this hit, this hit, this hit, this hit, this grab, that bomb, and then the final hit of Bow that's coming. And I don't think that we still have an answer for it yet. So that's a pretty gross one that's out there in the wild right now. Is what Sonic did to win Combo Breaker, and that's a crazy thing that happened this year. Just with Sonic was the records being broken of the top eights from Sonic and finally winning Combo Breaker, but it took Madame Cyrex.
Yeah, and you could
yeah,
tell too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, it's that's not a team, right? I think Mari he kind of popularized that team if I'm not mistaken, right?
I
In these
agree.
online tournaments.
Yep.
Mary, I apologize. So I know he's been the one repping that team for a while now. I don't know if Sonic Fox saw that, saw what Mary was using, but
I'll give you guys
um,
a little bit of insight of trader information. I talked with Sonic immediately after Brazil top eight, right there on the stage still, and walked up and immediately Sonic was like, I got to pick up Bow for everything that they cooked me with. Immediately, that was already on Sonic's mind to cover the grabs, to cover, in case the throw is teched, still getting a combo, little things like that. It was already in his mind, but definitely because of what those guys found the break throw into it, and then Sonic looks like it applied what Sonic usually does, which is grosser set play, throat grippy pressure that feels like once Sonic gets one hit, feels like it's over.
yeah, absolutely. And I know there's some people in the community who want Madam Bo to be stronger. If I'm watching that stuff, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think she should be stronger because they're just gonna make Cyrex stronger. Do we want that? I would say no. So,
They had a little too many
um,
Madame Bo drinks.
Yeah, I
Holy
think
crap!
it was cool to see Rewind get out of some of those bomb setups too, because he was using Diabolical Dash as the whiff punisher of the whiffed command grab from Sonic. Because Diabolical Dash would advance so far forward, it would evade the bombs,
Got past the bomb. Yep.
and then it would also get away from the bottle toss too.
And then that goes to kind of the core of what I think we were kind of talking about here, which is, is it as oppressive as stuff as was back in the day, or are there things, or is it a community that just simply refuses to lab?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a bit of stubbornness on some of the community's part for sure. And I'll be honest, I haven't labbed it too much because I I don't enjoy the online experience enough, and that's partially why I don't enter these online tournaments. Like even the weekend ones where I'm more available, because my Monday through Friday it's work, and then I go to the gym. But the weekends I usually see my friends because I just don't like the online netcode. So I'll be honest, I don't always play like grind the game online, but I do lab like a lot with Garrus and just like I haven't labbed too much, but I can already think of some ideas if I did want to try to find a counter with my team specifically against that team.
and let's be serious. That's not a team you're gonna find online most likely anyway, even at higher ranks. Um, that's one thing that another thing that people are not talking about. I don't think Cyrix is easy to use at least not to the extent that people are, suggesting. She's not a scrub character. Those setups are not easy to do. I couldn't do it. There's no way. Um, so let's give the players the credit they deserve for executing those setups and even for finding those setups. I don't, Mr. Akman, do you agree? Or am I talking out of my ass here? I don't think that stuff is easy to do,
I
and
haven't
it's not like
I
you
haven't
pick
messed
up
with it
any.
myself either because I just there's some characters I don't really like, and
Yeah.
Cyrex happens to be one of them, and so I just don't play Cyrex. But from what I've played against and from what I've seen, and I play against a lot of the active players on a consistent basis. I'm always challenging them. Anytime I'm at an offline, I'm playing against everyone in top eight, off to the side, everyone in pools. I'm usually there challenging all the best players I can, just to see just to see if I got it, just to see if I could do some fishing, you know how it goes. It's all I can do. I'm banned from competing. Uh, but there are there
Yeah.
is such a significant difference in the top 1% Cyraxes versus the rest. It is a shocking night and day difference. And the same can be said with something like T1000 too, where, you can tell the ones that are in Combat League and the ones that are, at a lower level that are just applying what they saw someone else do versus actually knowing and understanding the team and character in game.
Well, yeah, you would know, right? Because you see it all, and you're there for the, you're
Yeah,
watching
it
essentially
is it
the
is
best in the
crazy.
world.
And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but go to Combat League the week after a character comes out and watch every single person doing whatever the last Sonic Fox video was. I
It's
saw that
literally
four
a
times.
trend. It's a
It
follow-up
is
trend.
so stupid. I'm like, oh, here we Ghostface fucking Movado for the 100th time. Here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
It
don't
it's
was
think it's
literally
Sonic
like
Fox.
trends. It is a literal trend behavior. It's so
yep.
funny.
It's just Sonic Fox. I think it's all like whatever happens to be,
It's the
you
Fox
know,
factor.
yeah, there's definitely is, but I think it's also like they also emulate what other pilots are doing, right?
Hmm.
If I don't know if Homelander is the most recent trend, well, guess what? When you hit the God level, you're gonna see a lot of Homelander. It's just like I think it's natural and also happens in the other games that we play. But let me ask you, um, just to take a maybe take a break of this specific discussion, which we will return to momentarily. I want to ask you about. I feel like, and you touched upon this a little bit earlier. I feel like the FGC is almost like a bubble, and you talked about how we complain about all these specifics, which is fine. I haven't, I like criticism, but I feel like sometimes people like talking about stuff that's not necessarily relevant to a larger audience. As you mentioned, like the competitive players are like point something. I don't even know the specifics, but it's a very very small audience.
Yeah, and it's a
That
very niche thing to be like, I demand at Ed Boon at everyone to fix this one normal hitting behind that one character that one trillionth of a time that it did and I clipped it.
yeah. Yes, and that's kind of like I think it's again I don't mind the criticism, as long as it's productive. But I feel like sometimes the FGC just doesn't understand the bigger picture, and
Yeah.
um, we kind of talked about it earlier. Like all these games are for the most part more offensive. They're almost more cinematic in nature, and I think that's to attract a wider audience to obviously purchase these games and eventually get into the games and hopefully one day play them competitively. I know in Fatal Fury added Ronaldo, who's obviously a huge one of the biggest athletes of all time. Even if you don't care about soccer, like even if you don't care about him,
What a crazy
it was
couple
an
of
attempt to
DLCs that
go ahead.
what's crazy is that they had him and they had the I don't
The
even know
DJ.
what yeah, I don't even know what he was. Okay,
I
so
don't know. Yeah, I
he's
don't
a
know him, but
DJ
obviously I know Ronaldo from watching, uh, you know, Real
football.
Madrid or whatever. But go ahead.
I was gonna say that's so crazy that they put out two where one of them initially had like a real negative feedback. One of them had positive feedback, and then in the end, it kind of flipped where Ronaldo had kind of hasn't been talked about really much since launch, and it's all been the other guy, and they all flipped and started liking it, and it was one of the crazier crossovers that's happened in the FGC.
But it was an attempt from SNK to, make fighting games more mainstream, make fighting
Hmm.
games cooler, hipper, whatever term you want to use. And the FGC immediately was like, "Oh, we don't want this. This is stupid." But it's just like, guys, they're trying a different strategy, right? That has not been
And you know
tried.
what changed it? I think, in my opinion, what really won them over was the FGC, or they got that guy to sit down with the FGC. He's sitting down with Justin Wong, hanging out and having a good time playing the game, and then everyone's like, "Oh, this guy's cool. All right, he's cool."
Yeah. What is your opinion on like? How do you view this as an individual who probably has more insight in all of these aspects? You know, whether you see from a casual aspect, you see from a competitive player's aspect, you see from a somebody who watches and commentates the game probably more than anybody else, maybe in the FGC in total. What is your like? What's the middle ground here? Like, are we missing something? How do you see this? I'm really, really interested in what you have to say.
Man, it's so hard because the strategies that I feel like Warner Brothers have implemented haven't been the most effective when they've tried it. But you know that's something that I don't know too much about, or have much insight on, is because I don't like to think about that part of the marketing strategy. I always like to kind of keep it on Mortal Kombat. So when it comes to guest and trying to grow a more casual audience, they've tried to, I feel like, some of the cooler things, getting the actors in there, but I feel like the execution hasn't been great on some of them, like Megan Fox, right? Sonya Blade in NMK 11. Some of the guest actors and voices, you could tell that they didn't show up and put the most effort in. And so little things definitely added up when they tried that. But their horror characters and their horror characters have always done incredibly well. But they've definitely lost some people with some of the more eclectic picks, like a Conan, like a that's not going to get the younger audience. None of what they do is really going to attract the younger audience, versus what SNK was trying, which is being more a little hip.
I don't know if you
So
guys are.
maybe I'll
Oh,
say that.
I don't know how in tune you guys are with the story. 'Cause I know that's more of a casual like realm for like our games. Like, and I agree with the guest character talking points. Like, I think horror characters do really well, and it's not like I think maybe the younger, like me being one of the younger people, like I didn't
Like,
watch Conan. I didn't watch RoboCop really. Like I didn't watch T. Like I never watched. I live under a rock too. There's more movies I haven't watched that aren't horror movies, but like yeah, I've never seen Conan the Barbarian or the Terminator movies. Uh, so I know I'm biased to like dislike them like when they're revealed and stuff like that. But I do like horror characters, and I feel like those just fit MK a lot more, anyways, because they're violent usually and all that. And I just do think the having six guest characters is a bit much. Like I think two at most would be like my ideal guest character count if I had to choice. And like I wanted to
actually,
talk about
I
story mode at
100%
some point in
agree
a
with that,
second.
in that there are way too many guest characters now, and they're pushing a little too hard.
Well, here's
Which
Um,
something that
which
I think
which
the
which goes
FGC.
back to Warner
Yeah.
Brothers really quick. Just they're trying to synergize everything way too much, and it's that corporate mentality where I think we're gonna see it even more. I know it's gonna be a separate topic, but going into what could be coming next, they have to build it off of, and tie it into so much else, and that's scary.
Well, here's something I don't think the FGC understands. Like, yes, you will dictate the way the games play. You know what gets nerfed, what gets buffed. You know what gets balanced, etc., etc. But you will never be in charge of how these companies run their
Yes,
finances. And I don't think people understand is like when you talk about monetization, when you complain about monetization, when you complain about what gets added to the game, these are made from men and women in business suits in a conference room. Like you will
this
not
is
change. The people just do not understand how this works. And
and
again,
guys, this is a company that's 40 billion in debt.
yes,
They,
and yeah, and I don't think people understand. Like they think, oh, this should be in the game. You're not. They're not going to listen to you. That you have to understand. Take it from somebody who's been fighting against for a long time, and he used to complain about the stuff. And eventually, as I got older, I realized, oh, like they have their finances, and they're gonna make decisions that are that they're gonna make the most money, and you will
that's right.
not be in control of the stuff. So stop complaining about it. It's just It
And
seems
even
silly
right
to me.
now, it could be something like that where just from the top they go, okay, we can't do this anymore because it's not making us, this much money. We need more money. We need a new thing now, which could be
Yes, and I
what's
think when we
happening right
say
before our
that,
eyes.
yeah, when we say that we're not shilling the companies or the game, I'm just telling you
Yeah,
objectively.
that's just how
Well,
companies work.
exactly. Like I'm not supporting necessarily what they do. I'm telling you how things are, you know, and not the way you want things to be. And again, you can complain about all you want, but they will not listen to a couple of,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a couple,
What we want
multiple from
versus
Twitter.
versus what the guy in the room wants is a
Exactly.
whole different thing.
Exactly. So as you're complaining, well, why are these games more offensive? Why are these games so flashy looking? Why is this character in the game? The reason all this stuff is happening is because they want to make money.
And
They
s-
want a game that when people watch, that they can, oh look, I want to play this. And if you have a guy backdashing for 80% of the match, as Tekken 7 used to be, they don't think that's that's appealing to the casual audience. That's why Tekken
yep.
8 plays the way that it does. I think this is so
Although
obvious, but I think people don't understand.
something else about I just thought about this the other day. Um, that kind of conspiracy theory that Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat games in general have been pay to win. I'm starting to see it in the DLC right now where they come out stronger intentionally for promotional reasons so that they're on stream, so that they're seen, so that they're pushing the latest DLC. And the conspiracy theory keeps checking out for me, man, because I've been seeing a lot of DLC in the last year or so.
I honestly am a believer that exists because, dude, when Chameleon came out and she was
Oh,
ignoring hit advantage, that was like my least favorite meta of the game was when she could still ignore hit advantage with fan lift and pair that with pre-patch Peacemaker. Like
oh,
that's a DLC team right there. Like every DLC after Omni Man or I'm sorry Quan Chi, it was just mostly DLC. Like Homelander on release with his low starting forward four, he had three-way mix and then he had these other like I think higher damage because he had gotten some damage nerfs through Farah and himself I think directly. And
some of them
then
took
you
some
have
time,
T1000 on release.
like a
Even
Ermac,
Ermac on release was
Sector,
good
and
too.
Cyrax. They were all great, but they took a little bit of time before people were like, "Oh yeah, they're absolutely great."
Yeah, like Ermac was like he seemed like the best, like the most fairest DLC. Like he wasn't garbage like Quan Chi and like underwhelming like Omni Man, but he was like pretty high up enough. But like yeah, I think Peacemaker paired with Chameleon and release Homelander were like obnoxious. Yeah, I definitely do believe in the DLC power level being a lot higher than the base roster. I'm a believer in that conspiracy as well, the pay to win
So,
aspect.
so that
Well,
I
let
would
me
like
tell
to
you.
see disappear, just so we see more Mortal Kombat characters. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was just gonna let me tell you guys. I'm not gonna mention the people, but for people who actually work in the industry, um, sometimes characters just get released OP. It's because they didn't have enough time to test these characters, right? They didn't have enough balancing.
Absolutely.
Q&A was rushed, etc. Right? And if they're gonna complain about Mortal Kombat in that regard, remember Tekken 7, Leroy, 5, 6
Woo!
Leroy, Steel Japan. So Netco, that's a clear. Even Netco admitted it was like, yeah, they literally had nerves coming, like nerves that were like literally pre-written, like so they knew, they knew that they released a broken character. Just
And I feel like NetherRealm has done that a few times because they had some nerfs ready throughout MKX and Injustice One,
yeah,
here and there. I remember a few. Cyber Sub Zero was nerfed within like 3 days. A few others.
no, absolutely. So I don't. They definitely all do it, and like you said, they probably do it for promotional material, right? Like they want people to purchase these characters. And by the way, let's be serious here. When you buy a new character, do you want that character to be weak? Do you want that character to be low tier? No, because you feel like you're wasting your money, right? You want
Yep.
the character to be strong, not necessarily broken. And honestly, if I were in charge of, if I were Polo or Harada or oh no, back in the day, like yeah, I would release stronger DLCs, like because I want people to buy them. Like I don't think
Yeah.
is
And
that really
again,
like that's
put
crazy? I
put
don't think it is.
yourself in that suits job where that guy's job is to make money off the DLC. Okay, that's what we should do.
Exactly. So I don't again. I feel like it's almost like the FGC bubble. It's just like, oh, why are these guys so broken? Yeah, you're approaching it from a competitive player's perspective, but you're not looking at, like you just said,
And
Mr.
yeah,
It's approaching it from a business tool perspective.
which is where a huge divide is in, or not really a divide. It's where a lot of the conflict I feel like is currently existing is that clash of them not realizing the realness of how the world works in that business regard.
Absolutely, and I think you're hitting literally the nail on the head nonstop. I thought we were gonna have more disagreements, but I I don't think we do. I think this is all like clear. And I wish the FGC. I don't know. Maybe I'm just because I'm getting very old. I'm looking at it from a different
I'm also
perspective.
inside the belly of the beast pretty significantly, but I try to be balanced, because I don't support corporate at all. I'm not a corporate guy. I actually hate corporate America more than anything in the world. I just happen to work for them, and I'm also a very professional person when I'm working. So it's a weird balance that I walk, but it's a balance that we all have to walk because that's who our master is at the end of the day. At the moment, they own us. They own Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I think you being more than fair. And I appreciate it. I don't think it's about whether you're corporate or not. It's just about understanding the other side and why they do the things they do, right?
Yeah, because
So,
because that helps you be, or it helps me be less salty when I know that they're just being corporate greedy bastards. But like about some stuff, because then you can look at it differently and look for, again, I look for what to appreciate in the gameplay. It helps me a lot.
So if I may
yeah,
ask, oh,
go
what
ahead.
what was that?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
With that being said, I was going to follow up with the question of what do you guys want to see from NRS, being that they have potentially this 2 year cycle happening again? Like, what if the next game is coming out in the next 2 years or something? If they have that short of a window, like, I think the biggest issue with the MK games is like we said earlier, every MK game is different from the other MKs. And I think it just divides our community way too much, and that's why we have these little numbers
Yep.
that you'd expect to be higher, because like some of the MK9 scene didn't vibe with MKX, or some of the MK11 people don't want to go back to the old games, or MKX didn't want to play MK11, etc. Like however you twist it, you're always going to lose and gain people depending on what people like, and they're so different. A lot of people don't carry over into the next game sometimes. And like for the people that are MK1 newcomers, because there's definitely a lot of new faces. Like this is the most new faces I've seen since probably MKX, because I'm not familiar with the community that I used to know back in MKX. Like a lot of MKXers and before, I don't really see that much anymore. Like, and I miss the old community, and the new community is good too. I just don't know a lot of them. But with
See,
that being
that's
said, like we gotta like there's not enough legacy in my opinion. I think with these 2 year cycles, you can't keep making a new from the ground up MK game. Like I think, for
That's, I
example,
think, our
like
number one issue across the entirety of our history has been our lack of legacy, not just from a gaming, or not just from the game standpoint, but because of the lack of legacy in the game, we have a lack of legacy competitively. All of our OGs aren't around. I go to an event, I look around, and I'm like, okay, I can recognize like three guys from back in the day. Shit,
exactly.
fuck what's going on right now. And even I've talked with a couple of the guys about it. The last civil conversation I had with Tom was saying that. I'm like, dude, we need you around and being active and pushing for it, because all those old guys are looking for that, and when they see that you hate it, they're gonna go, all right, fuck it,
Yeah, like
and kind of follow suit. But a lot of guys throughout the ages just aren't around anymore.
yeah, it
And if they
sucks.
were, we would have a much more of a unified community, like a Street Fighter does, like a Tekken does. For when they have something big, they show up and they show out.
Yeah, so like a lot of like the like for example, like when I think of legacy, like as far as in game goes, like I want the archetypes to be consistent and the special moves, for example, like Scorpion Spear from game to game. Sub Zero's Ice Ball is even a better example. Like in
Yep,
MK9, it's
and
down
Clone.
forward 3. Yeah, exactly. Clone 2. It's down forward 3 in MK9. You go to MKX and you're like, it's down forward X, if I
Dude,
remember
I don't.
correctly. And then, and Ice Clone's down back 1 in MK9. Now it's down
They
back 2 in
made
MKX. So it's
they
like,
made they made a character like Rain 3 entirely different characters in 3 games back to back.
That is
So
very
sorry,
true
3 out of
too.
4 games. Where like I couldn't believe the shocking difference from MK9 to 11 and then 1, of which just a completely different character.
Yeah, that is very true too. Like he had the aerial rift moves in MK11 and
Yeah.
no cancels, but now he has cancels again. But in the mid range aspect, like instead of his like up close aspect in MK9, like
Mm-hmm.
there's just got to be more. Like the Rain player from MK9 isn't gonna be like he's not gonna like
None of us like
they're not
MK11.
gonna like the
No.
MK11 Rain, maybe not even the MK1 Rain. It's just like it's so
Yeah,
different.
and even when I got into MK1 with a couple of my MK9 training partners, and I was so excited, but like one of them was a Reptile player, and he wasn't vibing with Reptile at all
Oh,
on
the
launch.
not the reptile dysfunction. Oh no.
which I think goes back to a whole other issue. If a Reptile player can't do 3-1 dash, they don't know what to do, and I still stand by that.
Yeah, they can't play neutral with the dash on whiff,
They
like the
can't
zero recovery,
they
one
can't
frame startup.
zero
Like,
recovery dash. They're like, oh god, I can't. But Costner too. Yeah, right at you, buddy. I'm putting you on blast.
yeah, like,
but but over time I definitely understand it where it's like you want to play how that character plays
yeah, like,
or did play in a sense.
um, when I think of like my favorite design of Scorpion, for example, I know I harped on Scorpion a second ago, but like his MK1 design is the most like shallow, boring like the most boring iteration of Scorpion gameplay wise I've ever seen. Like his air
Yeah,
combos are cool, but like seeing him do knee uppercut for the majority of his grounded combos, like I want to see MKX Scorpion like
yeah. where's
Hellfire, the
where's Hellfire, man?
cancels, like I don't like this like and this is what I was gonna say with the new story mode like changes and resetting the universe and this multiverse nonsense that every like superhero and just action film game is doing now. Like I'm like sick of the multiverse stuff, and I think the Midway era story, and I don't know how in tune like Dave is with the story or yourself, but like the Midway era story from Mortal Kombat had so much potential that was never touched upon enough. Like for example, where was like yeah, Hotaru was from the Order Realm and Havoc was from the Chaos Realm, but like directly, like who were they before they were those entities? You know, like what's we should there's not enough info about Saito in the Order Realm or the Chaos Realm's origins or how it became like you know what I'm saying? Like we don't know enough about people from reptiles like race like the Zaterans like Chameleon, I think, is like Zaterran technically too. So like there's so much story that didn't get touched upon, and now we're in this reset universe. And I think to solve this like that issue of it, the story mode issue of it, is just like go back to the roots. If you have to reboot the timeline again, so be it. To solve the issue, because I don't want to continue in
I
this
think that, yeah.
timeline. The only thing I like about the new timeline is Baraka and Melina aren't really jobbers anymore, and Reptile. But outside that, I don't really like these new iterations of these characters and like Sector and Cyrax. Like not to get this is not political talk, but like when you have Sector and Cyrax's gender bend variants, like it just seems so forced and like they were established so long ago as their former versions of themselves were established for 20 plus years, and then now you just totally change like who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like and
And that goes
it
back
just doesn't
to
sit right with people.
the legacy of the gaming characters, and when you vary too much, we've seen the backlash, and rightfully so. And again, I look at things. I'm more of a competitive fan than anything. I admit that I'm not the biggest Mortal Kombat fan throughout my entire life. I kind of got in at Deadly Alliance from a casual standpoint, and then I got in MK9 as a competitor because that's what I was attracted to. I come from a background in one-on-one in coaching and competing in tennis. I'm a one-on-one bracket guy. That's what I am. Even before then, I was running underground one-on-one tournaments in Guild Wars 1 back in like 2006. I was running the biggest underground tournaments for money, baby. So it's just in my blood. So when it comes to being more vocal and upset about the changes to like the more casual aspects of the game, I'm not super vocal because that's something that I'm not super focused on. But I get the backlash about that stuff big time.
Yeah, that's some nice Mr. Aquaman lore for one, but
Hey,
yeah, like I kind of play on both sides. Like I get the casual audience is definitely not happy probably with the final product of this game. Like Invasions is not fun for me. It's just way too similar to the traditional gameplay of the game. And like these boss characters you fight can be so obnoxious and annoying, and the fact that it's like the best way to get the rewards in the game and sometimes the only way. Like when I think of fun mini games, I think of like puzzle combat, chess combat, conquest, which I understand conquest with these very high tech, like the way games are made now with all these graphics, and like GTA takes as long as it takes every installment. So I can't imagine like a conquest mode in today's modern technology and all the things that can be done with the game. But like that's like those are like the mini games I think of that are fun, different from the traditional gameplay, stuff like that. Like I would love to see a revamped puzzle combat in the future, chess combat, conquest, whatever it may be. It's just invasions didn't really hit for me. I
oh,
didn't. I
Invasion's hit for
don't
a lot of people, man, and
like.
as it really shouldn't have.
Yeah, Towers of Time is like whatever to me. Like it's just there's just oh yeah, the conquest. Or, I mean, not conquest. The crypt in MK11. Like I I didn't enjoy it so much because I just wanted my rewards like now, 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 and like it wasn't super fun for me. But like, I know that's for the casuals, it was a lot more fun for, and I can get that. So like no, not from going to having that in MK11 to no sign of it, like none of it. It's just like, I can feel for the casual audience in that regard.
Yeah, big
So it's
time.
just like, damn.
Yeah, I'm not too well versed on the storyline, so I can't really comment. But I feel like in terms of the gameplay does have legacy. I think that's what people are missing. Well, obviously not the cameo system, that's new, but like the way
Yeah,
the wake up functions, right, is a lot more similar to MKX and Mortal Kombat 9 than it is to freaking Mortal Kombat 11, which wake up system I despise, right? Uh, Mr. Aqua mentioned armor, right? Well, that's more legacy, right?
yeah, that
Unless
to me is Mortal Kombat Legacy, and that's why I was so excited for MK1 early. Is because I'm like, oh, armor's back, let's go.
no, bro, I'm with you. I know a lot of people hated it. I think there's a spectrum, right? No legacy and extreme legacy. I think, for example, the Tekken community is extreme legacy. God forbid Kazuya has this one move that tracks to a certain side, they throw a tantrum. I mean, they go completely berserk. They claim that it's a perversion of the character. It's like, no, like let him experiment. Like, what are you guys doing? Why are you being? And then obviously you have Mortal Kombat, right, which is sometimes has no legacy. I think there needs to be just like everything life, there needs to be a balance, right? Um, Again, we can have I don't mind developers experimenting like different archetypes, different moves that have never been done before in the franchise. I'm okay with all that. But when it comes to maybe universal mechanics like the wake up system, like the combo breaker, maybe keep those legacy, right? We don't want those changed because it can fundamentally change the way the game is
Yep.
played. So I'm in the middle, as again as I grow older, I know I'm in the past positions. But I kind of as I grow older and learn more about these new games and learn more about the old games as well, I think there needs to be a balanced perspective.
So like, my prime example of this is like my ideal like legacy aspect would be like MK11 Garrus and MK1 Garrus. I'm 100% in favor of MK1 Garrus's design. And honestly, he's like one of my favorite characters of all time, like in NRS game history. Like he's that fun to me. Like MK1 might be a little more watered down than what me and you guys are used to, maybe. Like it's definitely more tame than the games we came from. But Garrus's design, like with the sand clone and having all this tech and stuff, like I don't know how you top that design. So like if he wasn't for whatever reason, if he was in the next installment for MK for whatever reason, like I don't want him to be overwritten like or like made from the ground up again because like I love this design he's got going on. Like um, I don't know how you top the design. Like I think what they should do is like keep the current design pretty much the same and just add on to it. Like some of the MK11 moves that didn't make it into MK1, let's just say MK12 or like you told me Aquaman at Texas MKX2. I like that
Yeah,
that
I'm just
name.
saying. I'm
I
just
like that
saying.
name. That's a good one. But like the stepping it back move that Garrus had in MK11, like that was one of my favorite moves to use, but
Dude, same
unfortunately it
here.
just wasn't competitively viable because it was too much resource for the little reward you got. But like if he was in the next MK game, just add on to what already exists from MK1. Like I don't think they should scrap and overhaul these characters. I think they should just keep adding on like to this already existing cake and just keep adding ingredients, you know? That's how I think they should do the legacy. Like if there's a good design for the character that the community likes, like MKX Scorpion for example, give us back MKX Scorpion and just add some more things from either past or just new ideas for the character. That's how I think they should do legacy at least. That's just my opinion. So I don't think that's too extreme from either side. If what do you guys think?
I agree. I would like to see more legacy, like in terms of keeping, making certain characters play um, the way they played in previous games. I will be 100%. So I'm in agreement with you. You mentioned, like Scorpion Spear. Maybe keep the input the same. Um, why does Rain have different versions? Like what? Like I imagine, and I could be wrong. I'm and by the way, you will never please everybody, right? That's something people have to understand. And I'll give you an example here later. But I imagine in my perfect world, I see Rain kind of as a mobile mid-range zoner with some rushdown. But that's just me. I don't know. That's just me. Um, and besides, I think NRS needs to experiment more with the mid-range zoning archetype. I don't think they've done that. They've done a good job of that at all. So I'm 100% on board with that. However, people also have to realize that this is, I'll give you a quick rundown. Rio thinks Third Strike, Street Fighter Third Strike is one of the greatest fighting games of all time. I don't like the game. I despise it. No, because I don't like the parry system. It limits fireballs, it limits zoning. Right? I hate it. But he thinks it's great, right? So different people, because I'm also a Super Turbo player, right? So different people can like different things and different conclusions. I'm trying to get better at
Here in
understanding
Mortal
that.
Kombat, there's a big one, and I was actually going to bring this up, which was what should be the legacy mechanics in these games. But I was going to bring up one that always divides a lot of people in MK, which is run. And some people love run. They love that from anywhere to in your face. It's my turn, motherfucker. You're gonna hold this mix. Go, go, go. And some people absolutely hate it.
I need combo breakers to stay. I do not want anything that resembles anything else besides combo breaker. I do not want to see breakaway, for example,
Oh no,
of any
please no.
kind.
Or,
I think dash cancels are like a healthy medium if not having run back in the game. I do miss the run cancel characters. I do miss them, but I think dash cancels are a healthy medium if we're not going to bring back run.
I think you have to have a run button. I think that's
Yeah, it's
I think that's Mortal Kombat.
I think so too. As much and as hard as it is to balance, tying it to a stamina bar is also like really cool in my opinion because so much else was tied to the stamina bar alongside
And
of it.
also having a run allows you to have strong zoning without pissing half off, well, pissing off the majority of your player base, right? So the reason zoning was not complete about an MKX was because, well, you have the run button, right? And if you can't get in, that's on you. That's not on the game, right? So it allows you to have strong projectiles, strong defense as well, right? Without making everybody mad. So I think that's the direction. And it would fit the general consensus with the way fighting games play right now, right? They're mostly offensive, which is fine. However, we can still have good zoning, we can still have good projectiles, we can still have good defense, right? Given that, you know, there's strong mobility, there's strong movement, you can get in. I don't necessarily want the game to play like MKX. That's way too offensive. It's
Yeah.
way too monotonous. However, I like the pacing. Like I think maybe the pacing was a bit too fast, but slow it down a bit. Give us some run button. Give us good projectiles. I think you can, you can have multiple zoning archetypes in that type of engine without, again, making the player base mad. Am I wrong on this, or you guys
No,
agree?
I actually agree with that, and I would argue that a couple of things that I think could also be, universal and be legacy is the NJP. Another one.
yeah.
Oh,
I like NJPs. I like the
More
specific
combos for
designs,
everyone,
like
more routes.
yeah, like I like NJPs and MKX, like how they were all unique to every
Character
character.
specific. Yep.
Yeah, I like those. I know there were some not like nonsense ones like Cyber Sub and Ferritors were like safe no matter how high you did them, but
Quan Chi 4 frames, whatever it was. They woke up with it.
the Lerma, yeah, the Wake Up Lerma, yeah, Michelangelo, the special.
Yeah, that's one thing plays about all that.
Yeah,
Speaking of, speaking of, I hate to switch topic, but I have to go soon. So, and I'll let you guys wrap it up. But I definitely get because Mr. Aquaman mentioned armor, and that is one
Yes,
topic.
100%.
Mr. Aquaman, let me tell you this, man. You know the way I got my top 8 at Evo. To this day the way I like to play. People despised playing my Tremor. Like they hated Tremor more than Freddy, more than Zod, more than any other. The armor made people go insane. Like they just like they think it ruins footsies. They don't like the you steal your term.
Yep. Yes, and yes.
Aqua.
I'm
I
gonna.
was telling this man to
and
travel.
I'm
For
gonna.
like,
I'm
I
gonna.
was telling him to travel, dude. He should have traveled. That's not
Hey
like.
man, I'm gonna love with you guys. I was beyond carried by armored launchers early in MKX. I got so many top 16s just doing an armored launcher when someone did something, and I was just like, all right, cool, get outplayed.
Mr. Aqua, better what you say, man. People, you're gonna turn into a villain. But I'm telling you, man. I feel I don't understand. I completely understand what you're saying. But that's one thing that pissed people off more than the zoning is just the fact you do. I don't know, like a forward 1-2-1 with tremor and that. Oh, you
Yep.
think maybe I can gonna do a slow mid,
But I
and then
love.
the
Go ahead.
low shatter comes out. Oh my god, there
God,
you.
that's also safe, by the way.
Yeah, same. And then
It was
later
plus pre-patch.
yeah. And even like with Mystic Ermac, right? With the armor that was like what half screen and gave you life
Meter burn
back.
push.
Yep.
Yeah, meter burn push. Yeah,
If you
like
if you traded with
that's
it, it was a full
something. Yeah,
combo. God, the one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. If you
yeah.
traded with it, he got a full combo while getting your
Yes,
meter.
yes. And the hitbox, if you hit so high in the air, you would think it wouldn't. But I personally, I know this is gonna get me blown up, but I kind of like. Not like to a high extent, but I kind of like some of the volatile gameplay sometimes. Again, not saying I want to go to a tournament, play the game 2 hours a week, and then random somebody else. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I kind of like the unpredictability to an extent, right? In sometimes in fighting games, right? Do you guys agree, or am I like going
Yeah,
crazy?
I think it shouldn't be widespread to the roster. I think it should be character specific. And NRS has realized some things should cost like I like the meter system in this game, especially and flawless block's another mechanic I love in MK1 because they're not tied to reversals. Thank God reversals did not
That
make
was
it
one
back.
that kind of shocked. I know myself where they took a mechanic from the previous game and then refined it into a better state. In my opinion, was the flawless block.
Yes, I agree with that because it keeps meter build in check, and you don't have like MKX Molina building a bar in one
Mm-hmm.
block string. But so with that being
God,
said, like
raid on launch and X.
yeah, oh, Thunder God, but like yeah, I think armor shouldn't be widespread, but it should be like character specific, kind of like Injustice One Bane, like Solomon Grundy. I think armor was better and like done in that game, whereas MKX like every character had it, and obviously to lesser or higher extents than others, but because MKX was kind of like you were top tier based off how good your armor launcher was, because you can enforce
Yeah,
those
and then
messed up mind games.
in the end, there was only a few left, and they were amongst the top in the game.
Yeah, so
Yep.
like I think like some characters like the like a minority of characters should have like really good armor, but it shouldn't plague the game. Like that's how I would do armor at least. And if they
Oh,
have strong armor, then maybe it should cost 2 bars.
to be
Balanced
honest,
accordingly.
yeah, no, that's a good. I don't want too many things to be universal. Then you go back into the topic of, well, if it's universal, that kind of messes up with the archetypes, right? So I definitely agree with you. I think MKX had too much armor, but the reality is that MKX had no defense, and that was your only defensive option was the armor.
Yeah.
So by design, everybody had to have it, right? Like, how else would you what are you going to block for
And if you
25
didn't have
seconds?
two hits of armor, you were getting shredded by some of these other characters,
Yeah, when
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
when every character has it too, it's like there's less identity for that character. Like me and somebody talked at Combo Breaker about this, and they like the poke system. Like they like every character's pokes to be like uh, specific to themselves, kind of like what we talked about the NJPs and MKX. Like Ferritor's MKX down one with Lackey was like the best down one in the game. Like it reached super far, was 6 frame startup, but not every character had that kind of down one. Like I feel like the more different characters are and like the less universal things are, like the more identity every character has. Like you know. So like I think the things being less generalized or widespread, like it just gives characters more identity, which I like, and it also just helps with archetypes.
True, and but we have to keep in mind. And by the way, I've always supported archetypes. We have to keep in mind, the more differences you have, the more difficult it becomes to balance the fighting game, right? So if you want all this different stuff, then you probably have to accept the fact that you're gonna have to, have certain bad matchups or certain characters might not be as strong. Um, so that's kind of like the result of having, more differences. But I have to go soon. I do want to ask Mr. Ackman one question. Um, you've seen me, obviously not so much on the podcast, but more so on Test Your Might. You're the administrator. Debate Crimson Shadow a lot. Do you
Yes.
think I'm wrong about the defensive slash zoning slash turtling um, argument? The way the way the game that the difference between rushdown and defense, is it lopsided in Mortal Kombat 1? Am I wrong? Where do you stand on this topic?
I'd say more often than not, and more heavily on your side is where I lean in that I do feel that there is an imbalance um, in those keepaways where they just aren't as able to set it up and escape ways in via either cameo or just be a dash special or a dash something cameo away from that gap being closed. I mean, I I play one of the most zoning archetypes in the game, which is Rain Motaro. I go full screen. I teleport full screen. I actually play it just like Ares in Injustice One. It's incredible. Uh, but even that, most characters can do something tremor, something to close the gap tremor, something to close the gap behind sector double rockets, and then you're playing an up close game.
Yeah, I think people misunderstand when I say, like, I don't mean like, and I don't want to blow up Franco. Like when he talks about, oh, I think Quan Chi needs a laundry of buffs. I think that's complete nonsense. I don't think any character in this game needs a laundry of buffs. I mean, for God's sake, not Katana, sorry, Tanya went from like top 10 easy, right, to like bottom three because they nerfed one thing about her. So I don't think the game is that really drastic. The game is not that dramatic. If you just give any character one or two, maybe three things at most, maybe five, whatever, if you want to go completely insane, like that character can easily become top five. So I don't think, like, so when I talk about like buffs to Peacemaker, buffs to Tanya, buffs to, Sub Zero, some of these characters who are supposed to be like more defensive, more zoning, more however you want to frame it, you don't need that many changes. By the way, including Quan Chi. I don't think you need that many changes. I think if you do like 4 or 5 changes to most of these low tiers, you can easily get them up to top tier. So I don't think it's not like an MKX, right? But remember that one patch with Takeda got like 28 bullet points?
Man,
and,
I will say though, you talk about Quan, and one of the most things I see complained about in the game, which is so lopsided because all you hear about is buff Quan, but every competitor says fuck the armor portal to hell
Dude,
and back. So
nobody knows the Quan. Nobody
there is
knows the
such
Quan
a
matchup like I do. Nobody knows the Quan matchup like I do. And I'm just gonna say, and I will die on this hill. Orange Portal is overrated. And so far, my offline tournament results, I have not lost to a Quan Chi as Garrus. So whoever thinks that Quan doesn't need buffs or Orange Portal is too strong, and I would be okay with Orange Portal being removed if it meant other buffs could come through. because I don't. I mean, I use Orange Portal because in his
'Cause
freaking moves list, but
I don't know if you guys have
it's
seen it.
not as impressive as people think, in my opinion. People just freak out when they see it.
Someone will, post a Quan result and say buff Quan, but then like 17 players will respond with just a picture of Armor Portal. That's it. That's become like the meme now for Quan. Is that anytime a Quan player talks, everyone just responds with a picture of Portal.
And I think that also goes back to the the stubbornness of some of the community.
Yeah,
Like Orange
exactly.
Portal is really not that bad to deal with. Like I would much rather deal with. You can have an infinite Orange Portal. I would much rather play against that than a Homelander.
Ooh,
Like,
that might be
you
that might be a
know,
hot take right there.
but
Nothing. That's the
I'm exaggerating, honestly.
That's a hot take.
Infinite Orange Portal, yeah, I know, I'm just exaggerating, but yeah, I think, yeah, the Quan does need like a declaration of buffs, but I don't know. Like when Dave sees my list, he just like looks at how like long it is, and he's like, I'm not reading this. But like a lot of them are literally micro changes though for the most part. But yeah, that's a different story that I won't harp on at the end of this because he has to go soon.
I've seen. Hold on. I've seen all the tier lists. I've seen Tweety Talk. Foxy. Um, I'm gonna say it. I think you guys are famous. Armor Portal is just not fun to play against. Just like fighting against Kenshi. Like pre-patch
Just
was not
like
fun.
Crystalline Shremer.
Exactly. Like certain stuff, it doesn't matter even if it's not that strong. It's just not fun to play against. And this is my criticism, but I'm being very consistent. Same thing with Cyrex, right? It's just not fun to hold a mix up for 30 seconds. It just isn't, right? Who wants to be in a position? Same thing with that's why Kenshi got nerfed, right? You were holding it for, and by the way, it's the same thing with zoning. It's not fun being kept off for 30, 40 seconds. It just
Yep.
isn't. And in the modern um, fighting game, the amount of fighting games in which spectating is super important and can sell your game, that move shouldn't be in the game. It should be designed different. So if you want to buff Quan Chi, and this is actually what high level players are saying, they're saying, yes, he can have buffs, but the armor portal needs to be reworked. And I don't think that's not even much of a hot take. That's just reality.
Yeah,
So
that's like
yeah,
a general
Yeah, I think that
consensus
is the
about
actual
like
general consensus.
competitors. Yeah,
so when
I would
Tweety,
take that.
yeah, so Tweety says like, yeah, he can have buffs, but if you guys buff him a lot and leave armor portal the same, that's going to be a major mistake. And he's right. That would be a mistake. So obviously you have to make the character play a little bit different, and you have to kind of redesign him. Does NRS care that much at this point? I don't know, and I would probably lean toward no.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're saying anything too crazy. I think we all just want, again, I'm kind of also playing devil advocate here. Like, I'm trying to put myself, in NR's shoes. Like, look, if I were the designer and people were watching my game, do we really want a character just puts like armor on the screen and then you just have to kind of hold down back for 20, 30 seconds? I don't think that's healthy for the game.
Yeah, if anybody has any ideas for reworking Orange Portal, put your thoughts in the comments. But I would say I think Orange Portal should make it to where even if your opponent flawless blocks, it should still deal like maybe it shouldn't do chip damage on flawless block because like I know there could be scenarios where you could kill somebody from chip damage and that might be too much, but like something like that. Obviously, something unrelated to armor, but maybe it should like be instead of being near the opponent, maybe it should be like his purple portal, just with a different effect, where it's like next to the Quan user. I don't know, but that was like my idea. Like maybe if it was to be changed at all, to make it to where you get the benefits of if your opponent blocks a projectile, you still gain bar or something. I don't know. Even if they flawless block, because flawless block does hurt zoning a lot, and there's really no counterplay to flawless block in that regard. So like if that portal kind of temporarily shut that down, maybe it would help a little bit,
Yeah,
and it
that's
wouldn't
an
be armor portal either.
yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think you honestly you have to reduce the active. That's the only way. But obviously, you would give him pokes. You would give him a better armor. You would buff his
Yeah.
zoning. I think that's the direction that I would take the character in. MrAqua, what do you think?
I agree, and it's the direction I liked how they went with Kenshi. Just make it last way less long. That way, you're playing that game and blocking. And like we are talking about, instead of blocking 9 mix-ups, you're blocking 4 mix-ups.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
that's a fair way to go about it too. And like Kent or Quan Chi's kept that bay too because his best projectiles are locked behind purple portal, which he only has 2 repetitions of, and then he has to put another one up. So it's not like he doesn't have like a permanent orange portal projectile, like because those are his better projectiles. So like I think his design in this game was good outside of orange portal, and he just they were obviously very overly cautious with him.
Well, yeah, that's one another thing to buff him. Give him another, second or two of the other portal, right? So he can throw the purple fireballs, maybe one more
Yep.
time, right? So that would
Yeah,
change.
so like it's tied to it's not duration based. It's he gets 1 meterless, like he gets 2 meterless projectiles, and if you spend a bar for some reason, it uses both effects. Which I don't. That's one of the micro changes in my buffs list that you probably didn't read. But yeah, his purple portal is based off of a meterless costs one thing, meter costs two. So you can do 1 meterless and one that costs a bar and get 2 effects. But if you start off using a meter, then you're going to lose purple portal, unfortunately, which I think is an oversight that has been a thing since his release.
Yeah, again, I think we kind of know what the answer is. But the million-dollar question is, does NRS?
What will they do?
Yeah, exactly. What will they do? Maybe I shouldn't have framed it as do they care? Maybe do they have the resources? Others. I'm sure they're already working on the next project. So it's just a matter of, do they have the resources? Do they have the time to, give them a slight redesign? You know,
And the
go
ultimate
ahead.
question of what is going on with DC as well. Are they even going to do Mortal Kombat next, etc., which can also be brought up. Are they going to do an MKDC too?
I
Yeah,
would I would be up for that as long as it can be rated M. Like I want some Flashpoint level of violence, but I don't know how they feel about that with the DC characters. Like they probably don't want Batman's head being chopped off by Scorpion or something.
yeah,
So
that's right. I think that's the
that
issue.
that's a obstacle I think that would probably hinder that. I would be down for that,
Yeah.
but I don't want any restrictions on the
Or
violence.
when you guys brought up the 2 year cycle earlier, it's they have such a big team there at NetherRealm, and they've already consolidated their mobile team. Do they consolidate that into 2 teams, and do they do side by side Injustice and Mortal Kombat, or something DC and Mortal Kombat, because they may not necessarily have to do Injustice 3. They could just do a DC fighting game that goes along with the gun universe, etc. Although I have heard rumor that there is an Injustice 3 comic book coming out, so
I
I would.
oh I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I would be okay with Injustice 3. I think the game needs to be sped up. It needs to play faster. It needs to be more offensive. Um, again, not you guys know me. I'm obviously not standing up for against zoning. I am the zoning guy. The game just needs to play faster. I
Injustice
think.
2 was definitely on the slower side, and
Yeah, exactly.
one of my biggest gripes with Injustice since day one and two were the screen sizes. They were just football fields
That's
in
something that
comparison.
gets brought up a lot too. Even Maximilian has talked about that too, which I agree with. I think the ideal Injustice 3 scenario would be give us Injustice 1 dash speeds with Injustice 2 walk speeds. If you guys remember the
With a Mortal
movements,
Kombat size stage and character model.
yeah, if you guys remember the dash and like the differences between dashes and walk speeds from both games, like the
Oh, the
dashes were like remember the
dashes were
Lobo
rough.
forward dash, the Flash forward like dash, like they were fast. Like they could
Right
help you
dashes
get in
too.
on zoning. If you had Injustice 1 dash speed and Injustice 2, I don't think you would see as nowhere near, like, it would be much faster paced if you had just copied and pasted Injustice 1 dash speeds into 2. Uh, I just don't want to see Air Escape come back. And I think maybe bringing in Breaker for the first health bar would be an interesting change for Injustice because I know a lot of people do complain, well, Wager isn't until the second health bar comes, so.
That's
But
another thing
I
too,
think
is
interactables can be annoying too. That's
I
the
would
only
like
other
to see
thing.
a lot less time in specials, in throw animations, in stage animations. I think that they should be a lot shorter. Like fatal blows take too long, throw animations take too long. All of them right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. But honestly, I would. Here's what I would do, and maybe you guys would. I would keep the long stages, guys. These are superheroes, as my friend Rio says. Why are they moving so slow? Just fuck it. Give him a run button. I'm for it. Give these fucking characters a run button. The game needs running. Like, and then the long stage, because that's part of Injustice's charm, right? Is the long stage, the long stages. But give these characters the
Yeah,
game
if
should
there's
really have
if there's more
running.
mobility, that'll definitely make up for it.
Yeah, give the characters running. They're superheroes. Why are they moving? Again, they can still have fast. You have to have, the game needs to play faster, and I think the way to do that is running. Do it. NRS, do it. You got to do it, and then you can keep the strong zoning. It will be okay, right? Because you have strong mobility, and beside again, the game needs to be more offensive. Justice 2 was too slow. When holding back dominates the game, it's probably not a good thing, right? And especially like if it's a lot
It can
of
be
the
rough to
top
watch.
yeah, it's tough to watch, and that's why the game. Again, I'm not saying it's bad gameplay. It's scrubby. That's not what I'm saying. It's not the way a modern fighting is. That's why
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat 1, Tekken, right? 8, um, Fatal Fury. They all kind of like play very similar, right? They're mostly aggressive, which is fine. They have a very fast-paced gameplay, which is fine. And I think that's what Injustice should be. It doesn't necessarily mean you can have zoning. I still, where I criticize Mortal Kombat 1, but it's time to make the gameplay faster. It really.
Yeah, I think like if you're just a regular like fan of a series or franchise, like I think that's what makes like shooting games and battle royales so much more appealing is like it's way easier to grasp like what's going on. You just if you're playing COD or whatever competitively or streaming it, whatever, like the viewer, like the average casual viewer, just like they're running and they're pointing a gun and they're shooting the targets, whatever. But like obviously us fighting game players, there's a lot more that goes on with our interactions than the casual fans would understand. And like just watching Injustice 2's gameplay with projectiles and all this runaway, like I think it's definitely off-putting, and that's something that'll hinder like viewership. But like I think with Injustice 1 dash speeds, like you would see a lot less of the zoning problems that we had in Injustice 2.
No, absolutely, I agree. Um, I want you guys to wrap it up because I have to step out. I just want to say, MrAqua, it's been a pleasure and honor. Hopefully, we can do this again. I really love your. You get to see more than pretty much anybody in the FGC, and I appreciate your work, and I hope you keep it up, man. Not just for Mortal Kombat 1, but also in the future.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Yeah, I'll let you guys wrap it up. Thank you so much for hosting, King Joe. I'll talk to you guys soon.
No worries. Have a good one. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys.
So I guess with that talking point, what are you hoping to see if you had your ideal choice? Like, if you were making, or if you had any say in the next project, like, what do you want to see next? Are you like fatigued from MK1 or MK in general, or
I would so I would like to see Injustice next. I'm gonna say it. I always loved both series side by side. Injustice as a competitor was when I really got my start. Really like those mechanics, but like you guys were just talking about, Injustice 2 it felt like a little bit of a revert from Injustice 1 in speed and octane, which is the same struggle that MK11 had, in which MK1 can have. The game can be really slow, and I don't know if you remember, but like year one of MK1 was the most timeouts I've ever seen in NRS history. It was crazy. Um, so a little bit more sped up with is something that I definitely want to see. More uh less walking back is the best way to describe it. Like you guys said, nobody wants to see that just keep away. You got to come to me, back to full screen, try again, back to full screen, try again, even if you block, haha, type of gameplay. But I think it's time for some more Injustice, just to let them sit back and cook on the next Mortal Kombat as long and hard as possible to give us the most complete um and best experience imaginable. And same thing can be said for Injustice. That's why um you know saying the negativities about Injustice 2, one of the best things about it was just how complete of a game it was. There was so much content inside of it. Had the best customization out of any game, any fighting game. Well, one of them outside of pure customization like Tekken and Soul Calibur. But as
yeah,
far as
NRS
multiplayer, it
games
was
at least. Yeah,
sensational.
NRS games. Yeah, I would say Injustice 2 has it for customs.
Had plenty of single player content. Uh, fantastic guest characters, and with DC they can do so much. But again, what scares me is just how tied it is to Warner Brothers and Discovery and what they're doing, which I heard they're about to resplit anyway. So whatever Warner Bros. Wants to do with that moving forward with, and are they still waiting to see how Superman does? Again, thinking like a corporation, all those things come into play outside of just doing it. So I want to see Injustice, and I want to see them work on Mortal Kombat, the next Mortal Kombat, for some time until it's ready, until it's a complete experience and game that also, let me put this on top of it, that also is, has modern online features, because if it doesn't, we're going to fall so far behind other games, because that's where we're going as a species right now, is online, man. Crazy.
Yeah, even outside FGC stuff, it's crazy how online's just taken over. Like whether it be online shopping over going in person into malls or movie theaters. If we have
It's
streaming
crazy that-
services, like everything is just online now.
I mean, I'm going to blow them up a little bit. They went backwards from Mortal Kombat 9 with their rooms and lobbies. That had a better room and lobby than MKX, than Injustice 2, MK11, and MK1. You had your own avatar in there. You were throwing stuff. You were holding up the cards. You were in a movie theater in a King of the Hill watching your buddies play, making fun of them. The social aspect has completely died in Mortal Kombat Online.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would like to see that implemented, not just in the next Mortal Kombat, if they do Injustice as well, and that would be the place to test it.
Yeah, exactly. Like those should be core things that should just. Those are almost like givens or like just main staples to a fighting game now. Like the bare minimum is like higher than what it used to be.
That's what separates a AAA fighting game from what's probably a AA fighting game now.
Yeah, exactly. Like the bare minimum requirements are like now the bar is higher and like we're falling behind.
Fantastic rollback, and if you don't have fantastic rollback and crossplay, which Mortal Kombat and NetherRealm have not figured out still, in how many games now? Still haven't figured out crossplay. That's also putting us behind.
3 games, I would say. With MKX, we got crossplay in MK11 in 2019. That was our first crossplay game, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
And then the PC port I heard for MK1 is just still like I guess a bunch of freezes or just disconnects or desyncs or something.
A lot of disconnects. A lot of, if the person on PC is not hosting the King of the Hill, it can be laggy, and so on and so forth. And they all depends on their settings as well. Yeah, it's an absolute mess.
Yeah, and as a content creator or a tournament organizer like yourself, I can definitely see the frustration. And just playing with your buddies too, like people that it's like just want to be social. I think I'll ask you. I'll give you like a last question in a second. I'll answer like what I want for the next NRS game.
Please do.
So I think MK should get a break. It should be put on ice for now. Like, let it cook until it's ready to be served. Like just because I think MK's like reputation is being hurt by these last like MK11. I know sales wise it performed well. Gameplay wise, I don't think it I think that was like the best casual game of all the MK games. But sales wise, I'm sure MK1 probably didn't perform as well as they had liked, I would imagine. But
when you're under half the sales of the previous game, something didn't work.
Yeah, so like I don't know the exact numbers, but yeah, it didn't do as well as
11 million for MK11, 5 million for MK1, I think is the last number.
Oh wow, I didn't know they were that severe. So yeah, the proof's right there then. So like, I think with that being said, like.
But to be fair, MK11 is like hold on, I actually have it here somewhere. Oh no, I don't, not anymore. It's like the 5th highest selling fighting game of all time, or like number 4.
Yeah,
how's that for a stat?
That is good because fighting games are pretty niche compared to these other games like Fortnite and stuff.
Mm-hmm. But fighting games, keep that in mind. It's that high on the fighting game.
I thought you meant of all time. My apologies. My apologies.
Yeah,
that's still good though. That's still good though.
Only behind like a Smash, Super Turbo, and something else.
Yeah, and I'm guessing MK1 didn't make it as high as MK11. That was like our best in NRS games.
MK11 and then MKX, I think, is number 2.
Yeah, so
Fol-
we did what?
Followed by Mortal Kombat 1 and then MK9 and then Injustice 2 and Injustice 1. And that also goes into it is I think the biggest thing, the reason why we're not going to get Injustice is Warner Brothers needs money. Because what's going to make them more money? Mortal Kombat or Injustice? The answer is
That
Mortal Kombat, but by
yeah,
100. So
but
that alone could be the determining factor of Injustice isn't happening. We need Mortal Kombat because we need to keep printing, baby. We need that. We need that green.
yeah, so like my hope is for Injustice 3, but my objectively I'm guessing it's going to be another Mortal Kombat. But I could see an MK versus DC happening because
Yes.
you're kind of supporting both
And you
scenes
get the
like
most, yeah, the best of both worlds. That's where I'm leaning when I guess what's coming next. Just because of reading the, political atmosphere that surrounds Warner Brothers and the industry right now.
yeah, because like I feel like as a whole, like I really do think objectively, yeah, I think Mortal Kombat's like the obvious way to go because MK is their moneymaker compared to Injustice. But like, yeah, I think MK versus DC two would be a good medium. I just don't know how you would tie the story in. That's the only thing, but I wouldn't be opposed to that happening. I just really hope it could have the violence and gore that we see in MK. I just don't know how they
Yeah,
would
how they
play
make it
that.
work with the safetiness of DC and yeah,
Yeah,
for
if
sure.
I had my way though, I would want Injustice 3. I would want Injustice 2 walk speed, Injustice 1 dash speed, and
Bring
just
back
like
Ares,
the roster from Injustice
Burrito.
1. Yeah, like
I know we both want our boy back.
I want Doomsday, Grundy, Ares,
All right, chill,
Lobo,
chill.
like.
All right, chill with Doomsday. I didn't say all that.
Doomsday, when you play in a developed like at the highest level, like that dude's like not really as high tier as we thought in the past. It's just that's another thing that happens with the life cycle is we don't get the time to flesh these games out. Like me and my brother still play Injustice One to this day, and we have him in like bottom 12, I think, or something, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
out of 30 characters.
once people learned how to block and kind of check Doomsday in neutral to stop the raw, shoulders, it pretty much shut him down completely.
Yeah, his biggest issue was like just his sweep was unsafe, so like he could get down one full combo punish by some characters, and like his he couldn't do down one punishes into full combos. Like he could only do down one special. Like
Yep.
if he could do down one meter burn earthshake, for example, to launch, and his combos the majority of the time were scaled with down twos because he couldn't get like a raw back three after most launchers unless he had background bounce, but yeah, that's what held him back the most was not having a full combo off down one, because his standing one was 10 frames, which is really bad for Injustice.
Which was always something that was an identity to Injustice and not Mortal Kombat was poke special comboing.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of the identities I liked about Injustice as well is like poke combos. Um, and
Six frame
like
punishes, yes.
yeah, stand twos were mids, and stand threes were also mids, depending on some characters. I don't think all of them were, but most I think were. But yeah, like the stuff like that, like the stuff I miss. Whereas MK1, every character except Quan has a 7 framer. Stand one, every character's down one 7 frames except his, etc.
God, he's always been bullied in the frame data department. Even in X, there were some matchups he couldn't reversal against. Like he couldn't press a button against some of the pressure.
Yeah, before they buffed his down one to be six
Yeah,
frames, and I think
poor
it's only
bastard.
+3 on hit, but or plus it's like single digits, but yeah, he had to like do down one and down three, some silly
Yep,
nonsense,
he
but
needed to go for the down three for the higher hit advantage. That's right.
yeah, um, yeah,
It'll put
that's
someone pressed, but yeah, man, there's quite a lot that has been throughout all the games that NRS has put out, and it really is up in the air what they're going to do next.
Yeah, really, I do. My objective opinion would be the next one would be MK. I do hope for Injustice 3 though, because there's so many sick characters in the Injustice series. Like, Scarecrow is my favorite newcomer in 2. Like being voiced by John England
Oh
or
yeah.
Robert England. I'm sorry, Robert England. Like, dude, that's amazing. And other characters were cool too, like Darkseid. Even though I wasn't a fan of how his design was, but
Yeah,
yeah,
just him being in a game, you're like, yeah, fucking Darkseid.
yeah. Oh,
As a comic book
actually,
fan, it was huge.
One thing I really hope they don't bring back though is the health bar system in that game. Like the defense and health being separated, like that, it was just making things way too confusing. I just want to go back to 100 health characters with, and maybe some characters could have 110 health, 120, whatever. You know, if they're beefy or not, like Shao Kahn or Darkseid, Bane, whatever. I definitely don't want to see a defensive stat back in the game. And like, I'm tired of seeing these health bars having like 4 digits and a decimal. Like, it's just
Yeah, but they're
overcomplicating things way too much.
just make damage nice and flat across the board.
Yeah, I agree. But on like the to end this note, just give you like any last words and like where people can reach you or find you on the content side of things or social medias you want to put in there or any special shout outs, whatever. I'm playing your Coliseum video from I think 15 hours ago. I think so. Anything you want to say? Last words. The floor is yours for whatever.
Well, thank you, Brito, and thanks for having me on, both you and Dave. Like I said, guys I've known for so long in this community and space. So much appreciated you guys for having me on today. It was a great conversation. Hope you guys got some good insight into some of the stuff that is this competitive space and these games that we play. And yeah, if you guys don't know where to find me, I'm found on Twitter, Twitch, and really anywhere competitive Mortal Kombat is happening. My channel is my name, Mr. Aquaman, kind of everywhere, but I also host events. I take part in all the professional events, the pro competition. My series is called the Coliseum, which is just trying to give, you know, chances to players in between the offlines. It always pushes the offline tournaments and puts them ahead because that's where I feel like us as a community needs to focus if we want to keep growing as a competitive community because we're falling behind the rest of the FGC. So I hope that you guys have learned, to maybe look at these games a little bit less, inside that bubble that we talked about, and more as a whole. And especially moving forward, if we want to grow, and hopefully we get a little bit of legacy to back that up, both in players and game. Hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. Again, thanks for having me on, Burrito. It's been great, and I'll see you guys somewhere out there in the internet ether. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was really awesome to have you on, and I hope we can have you on again in the future. Maybe we have a longer episode. Depends on everybody's schedule, and I'm trying to
Absolutely.
get more of the old heads in here to give off like if they play the new game that's current, then we'll get their thoughts on it, and like maybe have some story times from like years ago in the past games. But yeah, just trying to grow this podcast that's kind of recently been born. Like I said, I've just been fixing things on my end with like audio and just yeah, I could just yap about NRS games, and that's why me and Dave
Hey,
started this.
that's why I'm here, man. It's great, and good on you guys for keeping it going forward.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll see you again, and I think that's a good place to wrap up at. Yeah, thanks for coming on again.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Yep, take care, everybody.